Thank you for joining us wherever you are. This podcast episode is brought to you by the Old Ways Actual Play team. This actual play uses the 7th edition Call of Cthulhu tabletop role-playing game rules by Chaosium. This actual play is performed by adults and in an adult setting. While we try very hard to stick to language for all ages, listeners should know that this podcast may include mature themes. All content, including names, places, events, companies, and etc., that may bear resemblance to entities living or dead, is strictly coincidental. My name is Michael Diamond, and for tonight's game, I will be your keeper. Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Old Ways podcast. I'm your keeper, Keeper Michael, and we return to horror on the Orient Express, where we have books to read and doctors to talk to. Before any of that gets started, I'd like to thank you, the listener, and especially you, the Patreon supporter. If you'd like to support us on Patreon, you can at patreon.com/theoldwayspodcast. Run over and subscribe to us on YouTube, where we like to give things away. And by the time this airs, undoubtedly, live shows from Origins 2023 are all over the YouTube. So please like and subscribe. Now, I'll get to caster introductions. To my right.
Hi, this is Mike, and I play James Robert Fraser, who is looking forward to a wee trip to the university to see a man about a head.
Yeah, no, fantastic. To Mr. Fraser's right.
Hi, this is Rena. I play Lady Elisabeth Fitzroy, and I'm about to do things that get me in trouble usually.
Well, that narrows it down. At the end of the table.
Hello, this is Giles, and I'm playing Simon Griffith, and I'm just waiting for the rest of the party to actually decide what they're going to be doing today.
You know, they do seem to sort of just wander around at the edges, don't they? They play with body parts or books or all sorts of different goggles rather than actually getting to things at hand. But we'll get there, promise. To Simon's right.
Hi, this is Miranda, and I play Maggie Bellinger, and I'm currently in a debate with myself on whether or not I should stand by my man.
Fantastic question. I would simply ask you which one. And last but most certainly not least.
I'm Martin, and I'm playing Richard Courtney, and Richard's looking forward to Maggie's game of hide and seek. He hopes she doesn't find.
Sounds highly interesting. So we'll pick up exactly where we left off in the rather busy bedroom of one Professor Richard Courtney, who's now got both Miss Bellinger here and Lady Elisabeth. Lady Elisabeth, having secured the device from him, is now going to attempt to utilize it to read a book. And so I will ask Lady Elisabeth to make me a POW roll.
Okay, my POW is 70, and I rolled a 36.
Good enough. We'll take 4 points of magic from you as you fuel the device with your very life essence. Certain that there's no problem with that at all. And you realign the lenses and stare down at the pages of the book. Those pages, which are normally hazy, difficult to read, and give you intense headaches when not looking at them with the goggles, pull together, and you get more of this sort of lore within these scrolls that have been attuned and bound into this book. So I guess I would ask, having gone over some of the initial lore that's within these scrolls, what specifically, if anything, are you looking for?
What I assimilated last time was where the Simulacrum came from and kind of how it was used. So now I'm going to try and figure out specifically how do we get rid of it. Looking for clues or pieces or whatever we would need to do to destroy it, because we haven't figured that out yet. And I was told that the book holds the secrets to getting rid of it. And now I've got the beginning. I'm trying to find the end, even if I have to skip the middle.
That seems like a very dangerous method of study. I like it.
I thought you would.
I'll ask then, for the sake of, the professor's bedroom, how long are you planning on sitting here and reading?
About what time is it? Because we said it wasn't quite to afternoon yet, but I'm not sure what time it would be.
It's not quite to afternoon. We'll say it's 9:30 at this point.
9:30. Okay, so I'd probably, if nothing else intervenes, read until about lunchtime. So we would have lunch and then go meet with the professor. So at least a couple hours. Assuming I'm not interrupted, which is a big assumption.
Yeah, I don't know that you're going to get a couple of hours uninterrupted, as you would put it. I will say that the book does talk about a temple located in the famed city of Constantinople. And this temple space is consecrated specifically for the use of the Simulacrum. The book also goes on to detail a portion of the incantation, or the setup of a ritual circle, where the pieces of the Simulacrum can be brought into, and then there's sort of a choice which is made, whether to utilize the Simulacrum and to make it whole, which also includes a rather ghastly series of things required by the caster, including using a consecrated blade to shed portions of their skin. That way, during the ritual, the pieces can be fused with their body. Or an incantation which would essentially unravel the magic that keeps the Simulacrum whole. There's more detail on the scrolls therein as far as the actual working of it, but you get sort of a prologue that's been written in these scrolls about what is to come. It tells you that also that the reader, the person reading the text and preparing the spells, will clearly be there will be some cost to that person, no matter the path they choose.
Can I assume from what I do get that the spells are in the book itself?
The scrolls do lay out the necessary information, and incantations are housed within the scrolls.
So I'll go through as much of that as I can, and then whenever I'm interrupted or the professor wants me to stop using his device, I'll be sure to note all of that with everything I learned before. But for now, I'm just focused on retaining as much as possible.
I will make one note for you, the reader, and that is that you realize that the scrolls herein do contain several arcane incantation which could be put to memory. There's information which could be learned within this book, much like it seemed like that book written in German had information which could be gleaned from it. Actual incantations.
Okay. Probably don't have time to learn them yet, but I will file that away for future reference.
Very well. So we will pick back up with everyone being ready probably around, we'll say, lunchtime.
If I had to get ready, would I have gone to my room?
Well, you certainly would not be, say, presentable to public in this current state. You have sweated through these clothes. That is fairly evident. You've been sort of resting and recovering, even while Lady Elisabeth has been sitting back and reading in the room. Unbeknownst to her, she's also, I wouldn't say mumbling, but she is saying things. She's working through words out loud, and so that has probably been a little difficult to be around. Also, when she says certain words out of the book, like your flesh ripples. It is really uncomfortable.
My thinking was that at some point before we left, I probably would have went back to my room. And when I went back to my room, there would have been things missing.
Oh, yeah, it's funny you mention that. Yeah, there does seem to be probably a few things visually missing. It's not that everything is missing, because there the torso sits upon your bed unmolested, but yet the circle of parts which were around it before are no longer there.
And I think everyone would hear Maggie absolutely destroying this room.
Oh, yeah.
Things would be getting dumped out, tipped over, thrown across the room, knocked over. Anywhere that something could be hiding in here, Maggie would be rifling through and tossing.
Yeah, other characters feel free to react to what she's doing. You don't need my lead.
I was going to say, if Fraser hears crashing coming from somebody's room, he is going to think the worst and rush in that general direction. I think he'll knock on the door with his fist a couple of times, and if there's no reply, he'll just try and open it, and if it's locked, he'll put his shoulder to it.
Maggie wouldn't have locked the door, but she also wouldn't answer. You'd probably hear her not screaming, but like, where are they? Where could they be? Where someone has taken them.
Miss Ballinger, are you all right in there? I'm coming in.
Yeah, the room is tossed.
Certainly. You open the door there, Fraser, and the room has been completely obliterated. The chairs are over, the dresser has been sacked. The bed is up against the wall at this point. The mattress is off of it.
I think I'll have a revolver in hand as well. Are you all right? Is there someone here?
No, I'm not all right, Mr. Fraser. Someone has broken into my room while I was gone, while I was fiddling with Richard's device. They broke in and they've taken the pieces. They've taken the pieces of the simulacrum. I don't know who it was, who it could have been. Perhaps one of those fezzed gentlemen.
This is something that you hear in the hallway, Simon, as you open your door.
Simon, having already been dressed, waiting to see what was going to happen today, rushes over to the doorway, looking over Fraser's shoulder. What's up, Jim?
Something. The pieces have been stolen. Come in. Close the door.
Does everybody else know about this yet?
I don't know.
Simon's going to step back out and run over to the professor and Lady E to knock on their doors.
Certainly.
Are they still here, Miss Ballinger?
I don't know. I didn't see them. I came back from Richard's room and they were gone. Just the torsos here. And there's angry tears streaming down Maggie's face.
All right. Stay back. I'll check the room out. I'll start searching through the room.
This seems as good a time as any to have Lady Elisabeth's reading interrupted.
Heavy sigh. Never let me have a chance to read and just get through things. Always have to have some dramatics. I'll hand the device back to the professor and pack up my book.
Any good?
I think so. I'll have to think through some things first, but perhaps we should see to the distraught Miss Ballinger.
Yes, I can't imagine what the problem is.
Simon's knocking at the door.
Yes, come in. Quite busy here today.
Simon opens the door. Some of the pieces of the thing have been stolen.
What?
Oh. Well, I never.
Yeah, Miss Maggie is all distraught, and she says pieces of the device have been stolen. And she thinks it was the Befez gentleman, and I'm not sure, but this is just... I feel responsible. We're going to have to hunt these people down and get these pieces back.
Well, quite. I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't that terrible old gentleman. That Comte.
We'll have to find out.
We should go, Professor. Mr. Griffith?
Yes, we should see if she's okay.
Well, newsflash, she's not okay. So upon approaching Miss Bellinger's room, the havoc that she or someone wrought is fairly evident. Fraser's there. I assume no longer gun in hand.
Oh no, I've got my gun in hand. I am searching just to make sure whoever has taken the pieces of the simulacrum is not still hiding in the room in a wardrobe or under the bed or something like that.
Certainly, sir. I'd like to give me a spot hidden roll. I will put you at disadvantage for this roll.
Alrighty. Oh, well, that would be a 06, but it's not. It's an 86. It's exactly on my spot hidden.
Oh, okay. So you make the roll at disadvantage. You spend a couple of minutes while they're sorting things out in Richard's room before coming over, and you're still searching. But when they get to the room, you notice something. Just there on the lower brick of the chimney, it's been swept. You can tell that it's been swept. You're a man who sometimes has to oversee members of service. You know what a properly swept chimney looks like, and you can tell that someone's done half a job here, and that is what tips you off to look up the chimney.
What's this here? This isn't right.
Have you found something, Mr. Fraser?
I'm not sure. Just hold on a minute. And I will investigate the hearth and the fireplace and see what is amiss.
Looks like someone's plugged her chimney with body parts.
Goodness gracious me. Well, there's something here. Hold on a minute. Hold my revolver a moment, Miss Ballinger.
I take the gun.
Okay.
See if I can see what it is that has been shoved up Maggie's chimney.
Yes. It seems to be a fair amount of heavy body parts. Simulacrum pieces, to be exact. You dislodged the first arm, the left one. But when you touch it, it feels like you're touching just a thorn bush. You get a sort of almost a zap in your fingers when you touch it. Ah! And it clatters down into the chimney. Several pieces now are exposed.
Well, this is most curious. It seems the thief has secreted them in the chimney.
Why would he do that? That's... Give them here. Are they okay? Have they been scratched? And Maggie's going to gingerly look over them to make sure they're okay.
Yeah, absolutely. They seem to be okay. They warm to the touch when you touch them. You feel like you're picking it up after, like you would rescue a lost dog.
Are they all right? They're not damaged, are they?
No, they appear to be just fine.
Aye. I don't quite understand what's happened here. Why would somebody break into your room? Unless it was some sort of subterfuge.
I have no idea either. And it had to have been when I was in Richard's room. I knew I shouldn't have stayed there. I should have come back.
Let's go and see him. Let the others know that everything's all right.
So you turn around, and Lady Elisabeth and Richard and Simon are sort of hurtling back, not hurtling, but walking back up the hallway.
It's all right. It's all right. Panic over. Whoever it was that's responsible for this seems to have gone, and we found the pieces.
What's happened?
Someone shoved them up my chimney.
Oh, right. Well, let me take a look. And Richard goes over to the chimney and has a look. I don't think there's anything there now.
Well, of course not, Richard. We've taken them out.
Well, let me. I'll have a closer look and see if they've maybe left a scrap of fabric or something. And Richard has a good route around the chimney.
Indeed, you root around her chimney, and then what?
He's going to make sure he gets some soot on him. Wow, it's a little dirty up here. I'm afraid I'm not used to this.
What are you doing, man? You're filthy. Did you find anything?
No, I was hoping to find a scrap of fabric or something that might have given away the identity of the perpetrator. All I appear to have done is, unfortunately, messed up another pair of trousers. And a shirt this time, too. Look, this was white at one point.
No, I think you're onto something, Professor Courtney. Perhaps whoever's done this has left a trail of footprints when they've trodden through the ash of the hearth.
Right.
I'm going to start looking for a trail of ash footprints.
That's an interesting idea.
Let me see if I can. I have a magnifying glass in my room. I'll see if I can. So Richard will peg it back to his room and hunt around for a magnifying glass that he doesn't have.
Yeah, you know you don't have it. But I will actually, interestingly enough, I'm going to give Fraser a track roll because I think this might be fun.
Well, I've got 10% in track, so what could possibly go wrong? I just rolled a 0.8.
Oh, fantastic. So after some careful tracking, you do find some trail of footprints.
I think I found something.
Yeah, there are definitely shoe prints here. Some soot on them. They're smaller.
I'm going to follow them and see where they lead.
Oh, they head right to Richard's room.
Richard, for goodness sake, you've brought footprints all the way to your room.
Oh, right. Well,
it's like you've been running backwards and forwards here through the ash. How am I supposed to find anything now?
Well, I don't know. I don't really understand what's happening, if I'm being completely honest.
I'm trying to see if I can find any sign of whoever did this and where they went, but the whole place has got messed up with you running backwards and forwards looking for your magnifying glass. Didn't even know you had a magnifying glass.
I think somebody's stolen it.
What, you've had a thief in your room as well? But who in the name of... The name of the wee man, who is running around in our room stealing things? Why would they steal a magnifying glass of all things?
I don't know. I probably misplaced it, or I don't know. That place I ended up getting passed out for, I don't know, hours on end in Belgrade. Perhaps I misplaced it there, but.
Well, there's nothing we can do about it now. We might as well go to the university and see this fellow. Deal with this later. At least we found the pieces. That's the most important thing.
Fantastic. So, Maggie, you found your pieces. That does put you slightly at ease, but it is strange that someone would shove them up a chimney, let alone your chimney.
Yes, and I don't want to leave them unattended now, is the problem.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could always stay back, not go to the university.
I need to find the other piece, Mike calls out. I'm really in a predicament. And it's probably too much body part for me to lug around, isn't it?
You would have to have someone bring your steamer trunk wherever you went.
Perhaps I could charge Paul with watching them.
I mean, he is down the hall here.
And I've threatened him before, and it seems like he listened to that threat, so yes. Richard, could you perhaps help me carry my steamer trunk to Paul's room? I don't want to leave them in my room, and I don't want to leave them alone, and I can't take them with me, so I guess I'll have to leave it to Paul.
Well, yes, if you think you can trust him, but yes, that's one plan.
What does that mean, Richard?
I think it was the Comte that tried to steal them.
You think I can't trust Paul now either?
I don't think you can trust anybody.
Not even you, Richard.
Well, I mean, that goes without saying. Of course you can trust me.
Well, I don't even know what to think anymore, but help me take them to Paul's room, and we'll leave them with Paul to watch, and then we'll go talk to this gentleman, and then the sooner we can do that, the sooner we can get back and make sure that they're okay.
Well, yes. Well, I can give you a hand.
You put together these pieces, Miss Bellinger, and somehow, some way, Paul is standing at your doorstep waiting for the trunk when you get them collected.
Oh, good, Paul, you're already here. Must be making your rounds this morning or something. Someone broke into my room last night, and I don't know if they were trying to steal the pieces and then they were interrupted or what happened, but they shoved them up my chimney, and now I can't leave them unattended, and I need you to watch them for me, sir.
Well, certainly we can't have them shoved up your chimney, so why don't you task them with me, and I'll hold on to them and make sure that they're returned to you when you get back.
Thank you, Paul. I greatly appreciate you doing this for me.
He nods and takes the steamer trunk and sort of sequesters it in his room, and then closes the door.
Are we quite finished with the histrionics?
Well, yes, nothing of yours has been stolen, obviously. If you'll have it, we'll be on our way then, I guess.
Wonderful. I've just been sitting in one of Maggie's armchairs, watching all of this, like, Abbott and Costello act going back and forth and in a mild air of bemusement. Shall we go then? Mr. Griffith, are you accompanying us?
I'm trying to determine if it's better for me to accompany y'all or to stay here and keep watch on these pieces, because if we lose them, then we're done for on trying to get this resolved.
Oh, I'm certain Paul can handle it.
Paul, do you need any equipment to help protect the pieces?
Oh, no, I should be fine. I have my own equipment. Thank you.
And that answers the question, lady. I'll be accompanying y'all to meet the professor who had the interest in archaeological find.
Very well. Off we go then. Perhaps Mr. Fraser could arrange for a vehicle of some sort. I'm not sure I feel up to walking the entire distance.
Of course, your ladyship, absolutely. I'll speak to the reception and arrange a taxi right away.
Not an issue, and so we'll flow from this scene through a comfortable and reasonably priced taxi to the university. So, as he'd mentioned, Dr. Jordanov is he's actually a chair of a university department, ancient history. He is fairly excited to see you when you arrive. He's also as perhaps Mr. Fraser might be assuming, he is also a little bit wary of meeting anyone at this point. Sort of telegraphs a little bit of that in where he takes you, which is his office, which is a reasonable size for the chair of a department. There are 4 or 5 chairs. There's a round table in his main office, which sits sort of in the opposite corner of his desk. Many bookshelves surround him, and as you can imagine a university chair to have, he has a fairly nice office. Although even for this area of the country, you can tell that university itself has probably seen a little bit better days. Not from the war, but probably from funding.
Can I ask, what is the weather like today?
I'm going to say it's cloudy.
Fraser is on high alert. He's aware that people have clearly got an eye on them. They know where they're staying. They appear to have broken into the hotel to try and do something with these simulacrum pieces, so he doesn't quite understand what that was all about. So I want to be keeping an eye out for us being followed or watched as we make our way to the university and then in through the university to see the doctor.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense to me. So I would imagine those of you, I'll just say if you've got a psychology of 50 or higher, you probably notice that Fraser is paying fairly close attention to the corners that the car drives around, or likely the walk up to the university, probably in the university halls, watching around corners. He's not being overly cautious, physically anyway, but you would pick up on the body language of someone trying to be careful. And that sort of same body language is echoed back to you when you meet Dr. Jordanov. He's also being very careful. Like when he lets you into his office and he helps you sit down, he is the one that closes the door. And while he does not lock it, you can tell that he likely looks back at the door handle a couple of times just to be certain the door is shut.
Am I fairly confident that we weren't followed here?
Yeah, you're pretty confident you were not followed here.
Okay, good.
He offers you tea, coffee, something stronger. He sort of chuckles. Well, some of you look like you maybe didn't sleep well. I'm sorry to hear that. If that's the case, I know some of the local hotels are not always up to par of some of the fine places you might stay in London or in Paris.
Yes, well, all the traveling and the events of said travel tend to take it out of one. I trust you had no further adventures last night, Professor?
No one came into my house and tried to shoot me, if that's what you're asking.
In a roundabout way. Yes.
You look rather spry for someone who was shot.
Yes, well, my family's always been a bit on the hardier side of things.
Good, well, and I'm sorry, sir, we were not introduced. He looks to you, Professor. I don't believe we had the opportunity to make our acquaintances.
No, I'm afraid I was, somewhat passed out on the train. Yes, Professor Richard Courtney. Pleased to make your acquaintance.
I'm Dr. Radko Jordanov, the chair of ancient history here in Sofia at the university.
Mathematics.
Oh, wonderful. I suppose we could have a great conversation about a catapult or trebuchet, eh?
Yes, trajectory and all that.
Where should I begin? So, when this situation on the train occurred, I was looking over some documents. I had recently been on a dig. There were some maps and whatnot laid out from a place we passed, a place you would have passed, I suppose, on the way, Vinkovici. I had found references there at a dig that I'd went to, references to a heretic, a man called Zedekvar. I'd written it down. It had jarred my memory because the description of the events that went on with this heretic reminded me of a former student, Ivo, that I had taught. He claimed to have purchased this head years ago, a statue from a farmer. They'd found it in a field. Yeah, he called it the Zuzeta idol. after a mythological race of dwarves, very common in Slavic cultures. Now, this former student, he penned a paper on it. He became crazed with what it needed, what the other pieces. He thought it was maybe just one of many. Well, he submitted the paper to the Archaeological Museum here. There's a Zeta idol, evidence of a civilization older than mankind. And the monograph got him laughed out very badly.
Where is this head now?
That is what we will have to figure out.
Right.
Now, the monograph claimed the statue was evidence of this pre-human civilization. But it's rambling. The research on it really isn't hard data. And that's why the community rejected it. Of course, his peers and betters, quite frankly, were not very kind to Evo.
Where is this fellow Evo now, do you know?
I believe he left. Yes, any sort of message we got from him wasn't even to my department. It was to another, but said that he was emigrating to Canada.
And do you believe he still has this piece in his possession?
No, I don't think so. It was submitted with the monograph for review. This is, what do they say in the archaeological world? This was his evidence. And so he submitted it along with the monograph. And I assume maybe it was amongst another series of academics to verify. I'm sure we can locate the idol with the information in the monograph, which I have. He turns back to his desk.
So presumably, if the head was submitted with the monograph itself to the university, then it would possibly be somewhere on university premises.
It's certainly possible. But this, of course, isn't the only monograph that was... Copies were made of it. It was passed out to the rest of the chairs and some of the other review board. Imagine finding something like that in just a farmer's field.
Miracles do happen. Have you read the monograph in its entirety?
Not in its entirety. Do any of you speak Bulgarian or Russian?
A few words of Russian, and that's about it, I'm afraid.
Well, he sits down at his desk. I am willing to go through it, page by page, right now. If I may be so bold, if a man on a train is willing to shoot and kill me for even having a reference to whatever this is, I need to know exactly what it is and where it is.
Do you have any ideas, perhaps, where the item might be located? If it's still here in the university, or I assume it would be somewhere still with the history department, such a great archaeological find?
Well, it's quite possible the information is contained here within. It wouldn't be uncommon for a student to write down for the chain of custody to say where it was going.
Do you have details of the relevant board members, the chairs that would have been reading the monograph and assessing it, and presumably using the simulacrum as the evidence, examining it and so forth?
I have not had a time to dig into it yet. To be perfectly honest, it took a few drinks for me to get to sleep last night. But there would be information available here at the university, which would likely tell at least the chair of the department, and then he would have all of that information.
Aye, because it strikes me that if you submit a monograph and your evidence, then the university would hold that. I mean, I'm speculating here, just thinking aloud. The university would hold that evidence along with the monograph originals.
Yes, one would think so. Yes, one would think so. Well, I submit we should go through this monograph. We should get a detailed understanding of what is here within, and then perhaps we can move on to the next course of action. But we must understand what Evil thought he knew about it. Yes?
Quite. Well, I am more than willing to take some notes as you read through, Professor.
Certainly. Dr. Jordanov is going to take out a pipe and light it. And then he will dive into a 63-page paper. It comes complete with sketches, and it presents a study and a theory of the origin of an idol found in Bulgaria in 1908. Jordanov goes on to talk about the idol as it's in the shape of a smooth and featureless head. Evo, the man who wrote the paper, proposes that the idol is older than mankind and constructed by a mysterious race of mythical dwarves that were known to this region as the Zudzetas. And as he winds through the story, the thesis and then the long and sort of drawn out form pieces, Jordanov talks pretty deeply at length about the myth itself, why this is possible. Well, these people who lived at one point in time near the earth. There's a lot of references to being near the earth or under the earth in a lot of their methods and a lot of their culture. But the last 10 pages are filled with wild conjecture. And you can even tell that as Jordanov seems to go over some of these sentences a few times. He seems to shake his head like he doesn't believe it. And there's also some insults that are thinly veiled at the archaeological community. So that would be picked up by anybody who is an archaeologist or archaeologically adjacent. So Simon, you would definitely pick that up in his tone and tenor as Jordanov sort of goes through Ivo Penev's story. Like, it was clear that Ivo had a bone to pick with the archaeology department. They didn't get along. I will give everyone here a psychology roll as this sort of finishes up.
That is a 10, which is an extreme psychology roll for me.
I got an 88 over 38, so nope.
Okay. Simon?
Simon got a 38 over 28, and unfortunately, he doesn't feel comfortable spending the luck.
That makes sense to me, sir. Miss Ballinger?
Maggie failed.
It's okay. Richard?
Richard was 46 under 61, so a normal pass.
Normal pass. Okay, so Mr. Fraser and Richard, the two of you quickly and rather confidently ascertain that the writer of this story is likely mentally imbalanced. That is the fair way to put it. So, as he moves to the last few pages, Jordanov notes something. He sort of brings the paper back forward and then to his desk, and he takes out a very large magnifying glass. And he hovers it over the paper. And he says, "Oh, this is unfortunate." It says here that the idol was sent to Dr. Mativ at the university here for further study. But that's horrible.
Why would that be?
I knew Dr. Mativ, a good man, a kind man. And then one day he murdered his wife. And when the police came to take him, they found that their two boys were also gone. Dr. Toto was wearing his wife's skin and screaming at their bodies. He rushed the police too, and of course the police did what they had to do. And they shot him. They put him down like a mad dog. A couple of years later, Dr. Mativ's research assistant, Reina Esiv, took her own life. She stabbed herself in the eye with a pick. She'd suffered crippling headaches for years. And the doctor said that the pain must have driven her mad. He sets the magnifying glass down.
Unfortunately, in our experience, prolonged exposure to pieces of this idol, as you refer to it, tend to have an unfortunate effect on one's mind. I was rather hoping that, as you'd mentioned, it was being passed from department to department and no one was holding on to it for too long, but it appears that is not the case, and I am very sorry for the loss of your colleague.
You misunderstand, this was years ago. I haven't even thought about Mativ in years.
Well, it appears he was around this piece for too long. Have you heard of anything else similarly unexpected and tragic occurring in the city over the last few years, then?
You mean other than the war?
Well, yes.
No, I haven't. I must say that this is unexpected, and Dr. Mateev's death and the unfortunate circumstances that led to the death of his family touched the university very deeply. We lost a friend to it, and unfortunately, given the time, there were a lot of pointed questions from the citizens about what went on at the university and what was actually happening here, and many of us were brought before governmental boards and, well, interrogated. A lot of pointed questions were asked. We didn't have any answers for them, and it was difficult to go to their funeral.
I can only imagine.
I don't know that I can have anything to do with this anymore.
We wouldn't ask you to, Professor. That is why we came to you to get what information you did have, so that we can take it and go from there, and you won't have to, I hope, be burdened with this any further.
It's possible that you might be able to speak with Professor Chidenko. He's the man that took over for Mateev after he passed. He might have something for you, but I don't have anything else here.
Is he in the history department or the archaeology department?
Well, he's a professor of academia, which means he sort of oversees many different departments.
Oh, we shall locate him then. I would suggest, Professor, that any materials you might have on this simulacrum, we take those with us. As you will have noted yesterday, just having the name on one of your documents was enough to have these people try to eliminate you. It might be better for you to not have anything tying you to it.
He sort of stands up and raises an eyebrow. I don't know if I'm willing to give up research. The problem with secretive things is that when someone puts their life on the line for them, it means that they need to come out. That knowledge is meant to be free.
Well, research is meant to be built on, isn't it? As we both know. So, I mean, I think what we're proposing is that we take this research and we build upon the work that's already been laid down, using this as a foundation for further discovery.
I'm not attempting to move in on your research expertise, Professor. I'm thinking merely of your life.
Yes, as am I. A life spent in search of knowledge, and now this leads back to some place very dark and ugly.
Oh, perhaps, sir, we may be able to shine a little light into that darkness for your friend and colleague. Perhaps lay them to rest and lay their memory to rest as well.
There's quite a human cost, physically, mentally, to all of this, Professor. We have seen it, we have experienced it, and we are trying to mitigate that for the people who come into our orbit as much as possible. But we are not going to hide this information. I merely voice the option to draw the attention away from you.
Well, I appreciate your effort.
Having said that, I wonder if it might be possible for perhaps a letter of introduction or something of the sort, in order that when we speak to Professor Chidenko, was it? He understands the basis on which the conversation will happen.
And painful memories for him, I'm certain, as well, but perhaps. Now, Mr. Fraser, why don't you give me a hard persuade roll?
Oh, goodness me. Oh no, that's a 71. That's a big old fail for just about whatever I'm rolling here.
He walks towards the fireplace and pitches the monograph into it. He returns to his desk and says, I'll let the professor know that you're coming. I think we can all agree that the matter is serious. I just hope that all of you will stay safe.
Safe hardly comes into it in this particular venture, Professor, but we appreciate your well wishes.
Shouldn't be too difficult for you to stop in and see him, I wouldn't think.
Thank you. We very much appreciate your help. And we also appreciate how difficult this was for you. and how troubling it is.
He nods, and then, after adjusting some papers on his desk, stands up to go to the door. He sees you out, as is both customary and mannerly, and lets you know that if you head back to the main university building, he'd be able to direct you to Professor Jordanov. Before you leave Dr. Jordanov's office, of course, you will leave something here, and you will take something with you, as is only right. And so here in this office, you'll lose a point of sanity, and you will gain a point of Cthulhu Mythos for hearing a Mythos story. The travel across the university is not too terribly difficult. We'll say that you got here probably around noon or so. With all of the hustle and bustle and all of the storytelling inside of Jordanov's office, it's probably likely close to 4. Most of you are either hungry or thirsty or some therein. So there is a small cafe here on campus, which you are, if you'd like, to make a stop and, perhaps perk up a bit.
And I will make sure we're not being followed.
Yes, you've made that clear. All right, then. So a stop at the cafe to freshen up a little bit affords you a little bit of time, and you manage to make it over to the main university building, likely right before it's about to close. So we'll say about 10 minutes before 5.
I imagine then it would likely be more of an asking where someone's office is, not like a directory from more modern times where they'd have it listed out, professors and room numbers.
Right. So that's sort of what you're left with. And this is, it looks like a place that you're going to probably have to talk to this person where this person is. Okay, how do you get to here? It seems like it's a choose your own adventure for professors, even with the professor you have with you. So using your guile, cunning, and unmistakable charm, you are able to cut a bit of the bureaucracy going forward. You meet up with a assistant doctor professor of English who is here from France. He is exceedingly helpful and also exceedingly flirtatious in a university sense. But he does help you out a little bit in getting you directed towards where you need to go. He also puts sort of a note in your ear, Mr. Fraser, about, some of the professors here, of course, are on a very strict sort of payroll. And so it might not be a terribly bad idea to consider paying someone for their time, especially if you're asking for something specific.
Understood.
After probably a good half an hour of this walking all over the main building, you do get directed back to sort of a smaller wing of a different building where this Professor Chideniko is supposed to be holed up in. This looks like probably one of the older buildings in the university, probably one of the first built after the main building is. And you come upon this man in a small library. He looks wizened. I think that's the nicest way to say it. He is short, likely even shorter than Professor Courtney. He's probably no more than 5 foot tall. He has long, sort of curly white hair. He's bearded. He likely has a little bit of extra nose hair and ear hair. He has dark eyes. There's a little bit of discoloration to his facial features. And he has a dusty old suit on, but he's putting books away.
If nobody else steps forward, Fraser will do the doings. Excuse me, Professor Chidenengo?
He narrows his eyes at you a little bit, and you see him sort of pull at his beard and stroke it into a point. Did I teach you?
No, my name is Fraser. I believe you are expecting us.
Expecting?
Dr. Jordanov, perhaps, called earlier.
He closes his eyes and seems to consider your words. There's that half second where you're not sure if he's fallen asleep. And then he sort of perks back up. Jordanov, he sort of says audibly to the library, and you can hear him sort of echo around. And the librarian who's here at one end just looks up from his book and then goes back to it. Jordanov. He nods. What about him?
And I think this is the point where Fraser will kind of look round at the others for some moral support. Might I also, when I'm speaking to him, just in this brief interchange, Fraser is very aware that the head is quite possibly having an effect on people. And if this man has had the head in his custody for a time, he's a little bit afraid that it might be having an effect on him. Could I make a psychology roll to see if I can see anything in his eyes, his mannerisms, his body language, anything that gives me any kind of cause for concern in that respect?
Yeah, you can make a psychology roll for it, sure.
Thank you. That's 20, which is a hard success.
You don't think he's being affected by anything external. He's likely being affected by age. And perhaps the one thing you do probably pick up on is that there seems to be perhaps a slight language barrier. English is not his first language. And so he's taking a long time to interpret what you're saying. Nods again and says, I got the call. I find it strange you would ask about a myth.
Is there perhaps somewhere we could speak in private?
He nods. He slowly begins to move out of the library. And as he does so, he turns right down a hallway, and you sort of watch, especially you, Maggie, watch him slowly move down the hallway. And you realize that it has been some time since you've had to wait behind someone who's moving so slow. And if this guy is the key to you getting the last piece, he needs to move faster because you got stuff to do.
Yeah, and I do think that this entire time, anytime anyone looks at Maggie, she just looks incredibly worried about what transpired this morning and the fact that she's left Paul in charge of the body parts. So she might even try to rush this guy, like come up behind him, arm around his, I can help you. You should just point me in the right direction and try to like scooch him along. Get going, old man.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like he has any sort of pep left in his step, but he does explain along the way that the idol is something that very few have inquired about before. He adjusts his gold-rimmed spectacles, which are sort of just resting very carefully on the crook of his nose. He says that he found it. He found the idol sitting amongst Dr. Mateev's things when he inherited the office.
Oh, that's delightful. It's the best news I've heard all day.
Heard other news?
Oh, no, not much. Just some crime in our hotel. It was awful.
Communists, right?
Oh, probably. Almost certainly.
They're all over the place. All over the place. He mutters as he gets to a door and slowly sort of fumbles with a ring of keys. You're desperate to help him.
Maggie keeps looking behind her and rolling her eyes at everyone else about how long this is taking for this guy to move down the hallway.
He opens the door and you see the inside of an office that is, we'll just say, well loved. I think that's probably the best way to explain it. The office is littered with books on every surface and cases of probably archaeological evidence, all sorts of things just strewn about the office. He could use an assistant and a filing system and all manner of organization. This seems to be, Richard, this seems to be this man's hoard. This is his knowledge hoard here. He rubs his temples and heads towards his desk. Now, you were asking about this idol that was found?
Yes, is it here in your office? So we could see it. Possibly Maggie's eyes are darting around the place.
Well, it isn't here. It's in a storeroom. He smiles.
Maggie audibly sighs.
You can't really tell he's smiling because but you do see the beard line adjust just a little bit. Well, there's a workroom here. It's not far. You see him get up from his chair that he'd sort of flopped into, and then he slowly works his way towards what looks like a staircase.
No acrobatics now, Maggie. Remembering the time in the little cottage and the arm in the rafters.
As they head out the room, Fraser's going to ask him, Sir, I was wondering, have you had an opportunity to examine the piece yourself? I understand that it was submitted along with a rather unusual paper.
Well, it is unusual. I can tell you that. I've had an opportunity to look at it, yes. I'm unable to identify the material it's made out of.
Oh, is it not stone of some kind? I would have imagined it to have been a carving.
Oh, one would think that, yes, but it doesn't hold the weight of a normal stone. Now, what's interesting about stone, he stops in his office. Stone here, especially in these lands, it's not like anything this head is carved from. That's why the farmer must have had such a revelation when he unearthed it.
Perhaps it was carved elsewhere and someone carelessly mislaid it in the field, or buried it. Perhaps it was stolen, and the person wanted to hide their ill-gotten gains somewhere where they thought nobody would find it.
Possible. He walks out of his office, down a couple of doors towards what looks like a workroom. I'd like everyone to make me a listen roll.
That is 15. It's a hard success.
Oh, very good.
I got a 27 under 60, which is a hard success for me.
Okay. Giles?
68 over 52, so that's a fail.
Okay. Maggie?
Maggie got a 62 under 77, so pass for Maggie.
Yay. Martin?
And Richard got 62 under 64, so just about a pass.
Okay. So as you are moving closer to this door, this storeroom, you hear a commotion inside the space beyond this door. You can hear something happening in the room. You see him sort of reach out with his key, and then about halfway towards the lock, he stops. And you see him sort of lean in.
So does it sound like a fight's taking place or something like that in the room? Or?
Yeah, you know what it sounds like? It sounds like 3 or 4 guys met down at the pub, and now they're having a good old row about things.
I'm going to put my hand on my revolver in my pocket. I don't want to take it out and show it just at the moment, but I want to have it easily accessible. Sir, perhaps you might want to step back.
He steps back very gingerly.
Is the door unlocked?
You reach out and you can see that, yeah, the handle's definitely unlocked. You can see it turn.
I will look to Simon. Simon, you ready?
For what?
For whatever's going on in there. Did you not hear it? There's a fight going on.
Yeah, now you can hear it, Simon. It's been pointed out to you.
All right. Simon kneels a little and pulls out his short sword, effectively.
Takes out a really big knife.
And when I'm confident that Simon's ready and everyone else is ready, I will open the door.
Within this space is pure chaos. Scattered across the floor amid a ton of glittering fragments of glass lie several unconscious bodies. One man has no head. His body is still sort of reflexively jerking up and down. Muscles are continuing to pulse with whatever life essence they have. And so the cavity where his neck once stood is spurting blood all over the room. Others have been severely bludgeoned. One man lays against a rack of books, and it looks like they've used just the upturned corner of the end of that sort of book rack to jam through his skull.
Is that a sanity roll to see a man with no head?
Yeah, unless there's pulp characters who are cold-blooded, then obviously they don't have to. But for those of you who stepped into the room to see the pure chaos and the bodies and whatnot, it's definitely a sanity roll.
Yeah, I think the revolver's coming out of the pocket as well. That's a failure for me on the sanity roll.
All right, so that's D6 if I fail. Oh, it's just one. So, Maggie, in front of you, the professor, the old wise professor, screams and holds his head, grabs it on both sides. The key ring drops, and he sort of collapses back into you.
I'll try to catch him as best as I can so he doesn't fall and get my arm under his arms.
You catch him so that he doesn't fall terribly. He's going to the ground. There's no way you're going to be able to probably hold him up entirely.
Yeah.
Fraser, a window at the far end of the room is open. Curtains are flapping madly, and there's a chill gale that runs its way through the room.
I'm running towards it, full tilt. I think my involuntary action for the failed sand roll will be just to let out a little kind of yelp of surprise, maybe stagger back a step, and then I'm going to shout, "Call the police!"
Yeah, when you stagger back and get ready to propel yourself forward, you see that there are several men in dark clothing who are trying to hurtle themselves sort of out of this window space. One of them is clutching something in his hands.
Oh, if I can see anything, I'm going to shoot it.
Well, we'll certainly get to that next time we get together for Horror on the Orient Express. So thank you, our listening audience, and good night.